Why can an intelligent person examine a business plan, detect the weak numbers, question the strategy, and identify every financial risk yet remain completely blind to the weakness in the person presenting it? Here is the answer. Deception does not always begin by defeating your intelligence. Sometimes it begins by satisfying your appetite. It reaches your need for approval, opportunity, security, affection, or rescue before your reason has examined the evidence. My friends, this is very important. A package can be polished while the contents are damaged. A building can be beautiful while its foundation is fractured. The paint does not strengthen the concrete. The wrapping does not repair the product. Presentation can attract you, but presentation cannot protect you. So write this down. Charisma is the ability to attract attention. Character is the inner standard that governs conduct when attention is absent. What did I say? Charisma attracts attention. Character governs conduct. You can possess charisma and still lack character. You can speak confidently and still be dishonest. You can appear generous and still use generosity to purchase control. You can quote spiritual truth and still refuse correction. You can impress a room and mistreat the people who help prepare it. That is why reputation and character are not the same. Reputation is the public conclusion people form about you. Character is the private cause that eventually produces the truth about you. Reputation can be managed for a season. Character keeps speaking through repeated decisions. Now watch. Visible confidence can create borrowed credibility. We see certainty, success, eloquence, influence, or spiritual language, and we lend that person trust their conduct has not yet earned. Confidence says, listen to me. Wisdom asks, what evidence supports what I am hearing? Repeat this rule. Attraction may open the door, but only evidence should determine access. Attraction may introduce you. It must not decide for you. This principle affects everything. Choose the wrong leader, and that person may redirect an organization. Choose the wrong business partner, and charm may gain access to your money before integrity has been tested. Choose the wrong friend, and admiration may slowly alter your judgment. Choose the wrong spiritual guide, and persuasive language may replace personal responsibility. Choose the wrong intimate partner, and intensity may gain access to your peace, confidence, and purpose. Charisma is not evil. It is a gift of communication and presence. But every gift requires government. When charisma serves character, it can inspire people. When charisma replaces character, it becomes camouflage. So before we test the person attracting you, we must examine the part of you being attracted. What need is their presence satisfying? What fear is their promise calming? What emptiness is their attention filling? Because before you can see another person clearly, you must understand the emotional condition that makes appearances so persuasive. Now, let us move the investigation inward, because the first vulnerability may not be the performance in front of you. It may be the hunger within you. Write this down. An unexamined wound creates an appetite. Appetite creates urgency. Urgency lowers standards. Lowered standards grant access before evidence appears. That chain has destroyed many otherwise intelligent decisions. Consider loneliness. Loneliness does not merely make you want company. It can make attention feel like loyalty. Someone calls every day, speaks with unusual intensity, remembers small details, and suddenly you conclude this person must be faithful. No. Attention proves presence in a moment. Loyalty is proven through conduct over time. Intensity is not history. Now consider insecurity. When you have not settled your own worth, praise becomes powerful. A flattering person appears to give you something you are missing. They tell you that you are exceptional, misunderstood, indispensable, and because the words soothe an ache, you may reward the speaker with access. Listen carefully. When another person supplies your identity, that person can eventually negotiate with your identity. The same mouth that lifts you can threaten to withdraw its approval. Flattery becomes leverage. Then there is fear. Fear wants certainty immediately. It wants someone to promise protection, promotion, rescue, financial security, or a future without risk. So when a confident person says, "Trust me, I can solve this," fear may hear authority where wisdom should hear an untested claim. And admiration creates another blind spot. If an ordinary person broke a promise, you would question it. But when an impressive person does it, you call them busy. If an ordinary person spoke harshly, you would call it disrespect. But when a successful person does it, you call it strength. Do you see the danger? Admiration can rename misconduct to preserve the image it loves. This is why emotions must be understood properly. Emotions are indicators, not judges. They can tell you that something deserves attention, but they cannot deliver the final verdict. Discomfort may be warning you about danger, but discomfort can also come from exhaustion, previous betrayal, wounded pride, or fear of rejection. Excitement may signal opportunity, but excitement can also come from vanity, desperation, or the thrill of being chosen. Your feelings are real, but your interpretation of them may still require examination. Ask yourself 3 questions. Write them down. What am I hoping this person will give me? Why do I need this decision to happen so quickly? What evidence would I notice if I were not afraid of losing this opportunity? Those questions interrupt emotional momentum. They separate what the person has demonstrated from what your heart wants them to represent. My friends, inner security does not make you cold. It makes you clear. It does not eliminate compassion, attraction, admiration, or hope. It removes desperation from them. When your identity is settled, flattery loses bargaining power. When fear no longer governs you, intimidation weakens. When you are not begging to be rescued, false promises become easier to examine. Discernment improves when your needs are acknowledged and healed instead of being allowed to choose secretly on your behalf. And once urgency loses its authority, something precious becomes available: time. Time allows words to be tested by conduct, apologies to be tested by change, and appearances to be tested by patterns. That is where the first character test begins. The first test is consistency. Write that word down. Consistency. Consistency is the alignment of what a person says, what a person repeatedly chooses, and how that person behaves when the environment changes. It is not perfection. It is a settled direction. Scripture gives us a simple picture. Fruit. You do not determine the condition of a tree by examining one beautiful piece of fruit. And you do not condemn an entire tree because one piece was damaged. You study what the tree repeatedly produces. What did I say? The repeated yield reveals the source. This protects you from 2 mistakes. The first is gullibility, allowing one impressive moment to prove everything. The second is cruelty, allowing one disappointing moment to define everything. Wisdom does neither. A person may show extraordinary affection for 1 week. That is intensity. Can they practice respect after familiarity arrives? That is consistency. Someone may make one generous gesture in public. That is memorable. Do they behave responsibly when nobody applauds? That is dependable. Someone may speak confidently about faith, values, or leadership. Fine. But does that language remain visible in their decisions when keeping those values becomes expensive? My friends, an image performs best in a controlled environment. Character survives a change of environment. Change the audience. Change the incentive. Change the person's status. Remove the applause. Introduce inconvenience. Then observe whether the same principles remain in authority. Here is a practical grid. Compare promises with follow-through. Compare public courtesy with private conduct. Compare apologies with later behavior. Compare early enthusiasm with endurance after the excitement disappears. Do not merely ask, what did this person tell me? Ask, what has this person trained me to expect? Now watch how manipulation can create confusion. First comes warmth, and warmth gains access. Then access slowly becomes control. Control eventually produces conflict. Conflict brings a dramatic apology, powerful emotion, perhaps gifts, perhaps promises. For a short time, behavior improves. Then the same control returns wearing different clothing. The pleasant interruption does not necessarily change the direction of the cycle. It may only reset it. This is why explanations must remain servants of evidence, not masters over it. Explanations can provide context. Everyone needs context, but explanations cannot be permitted to overrule the same behavior indefinitely. If the speech changes every month, but the conduct never changes, the conduct is telling the truth more clearly. At the same time, be fair. One mistake is not a pattern. One impatient response is not a complete character profile. Mature people can fail, recognize it, accept responsibility, repair the damage, and grow. But repeated failure without sustained repair must affect trust. Forgiveness may be immediate. Confidence is rebuilt through evidence. Genuine change is not the emotion someone displays when consequences arrive. Genuine change is new conduct maintained after the emotional moment has passed. Tears may express sorrow. Promises may express intention. Only disciplined behavior demonstrates a new direction. So examine your hope. Has hope been working with wisdom, or has hope been erasing evidence? Faith can believe that people are capable of transformation, while wisdom waits for transformation to become visible. You do not honor anyone by pretending that words have already become character. Write this rule down. Never judge a life only by its brightest moment or its darkest moment. Study its settled direction. That rule keeps your heart open without leaving your future unprotected. It allows mercy for human weakness and accountability for repeated choices. You become neither gullible nor merciless. You become discerning. Consistency tells you what a person normally does. But the next test goes deeper. Correction reveals what happens when that person is challenged, when they can no longer control the story, protect the image, or assume they are right. The second test is correction. Correction is information that challenges the image you prefer, the decision you made, or the behavior you defended. It does not merely test your opinion. It tests the structure beneath your confidence. A building may appear strong until weight is placed upon it. In the same way, a person may appear humble until someone says, "You may be wrong." Now watch the distinction. Confidence can listen without collapsing. Arrogance interprets disagreement as an attack. Confidence says, "Let me examine that." Arrogance says, "How dare you question me?" Confidence protects truth. Arrogance protects image. Write this down. Teachability is strength secure enough to examine itself. A healthy response to correction has a sequence. First, listen without preparing a counterattack. Secondly, clarify the concern. Thirdly, examine the evidence. Fourthly, accept responsibility wherever responsibility belongs to you. Fifthly, repair what your conduct damaged. Finally, allow change behavior to confirm what your apology announced. That is maturity. But pay attention to the warning responses. Some people interrupt before the concern is complete. Some ridicule the person raising it. Some shift blame, produce a counter-accusation, withdraw affection, threaten consequences, or use spiritual language to make honest questions appear rebellious. Others spend 20 minutes defending their intentions while refusing to discuss the impact of their conduct. Intent matters, but intent does not erase impact. An excessive explanation can become camouflage. Language is supposed to answer the question, but when words are used to tire you, confuse you, or make you forget what you asked, explanation has become evasion. A long answer is not necessarily an honest answer. This is especially serious in leadership. A leader's response to correction educates the entire environment. If questions produce punishment, people learn to hide information. If honest disagreement produces humiliation, people learn that agreement is safer than truth. Soon, the leader is surrounded by approval and starving for reality. No organization, ministry, family, or partnership can remain healthy when one person must always be innocent. In a trustworthy partnership, difficult information becomes material for shared problem solving. The question is not who can win this courtroom. The question is, what is true, what was damaged, and what must change? Character does not need to win every conversation. Character needs truth to win. Now, let us balance this principle. Correction can be wrong. Advice can be uninformed. Criticism can come from jealousy, misunderstanding, or incomplete evidence. Humility does not require you to surrender automatically to every opinion. It requires honest examination. You can listen without agreeing. You can investigate without becoming unstable. You can reject inaccurate correction without insulting the person who offered it. My question is not only how do they respond to correction? My question is, how do you respond? When corrected, do you become curious or combative? Do you seek truth or merely the final word? Do you repair the damage or explain why the damage should not matter? Do you have character? Trust should expand when accountability produces repair. Trust should narrow when every correction produces retaliation. Teachable strength invites truth because it wants to grow. Defensive dominant silence is truth because it wants to remain in control. Correction reveals character when another voice possesses enough courage to challenge it. But the next test may reveal even more. How does a person behave when the other individual has almost no power to challenge them at all? The third test is unequal power. This is where character becomes difficult to hide. Unequal power exists whenever one person controls something another person needs. Access, money, information, opportunity, status, approval, or consequences. One person can open the door. The other must ask permission to enter. Now watch carefully. Many people know how to perform respect upward. They honor the person who can promote them. They smile at the person who can fund them. They become patient with the person whose name carries influence. But character is revealed in the respect they extend sideways and downward. Write this down. Courtesy offered only to useful people is not honor, it is strategy. Observe how a leader speaks to an assistant after a mistake. Watch how a business owner addresses an employee who cannot answer back. Notice how someone treats a server, a driver, a newcomer, an elderly relative, or a person with no impressive title. These ordinary moments are windows. There is no stage, no applause, and often no advantage to gain. What appears there is difficult to manufacture. Transactional kindness asks, what can this person do for me? Principled honor asks, what dignity does this person possess? Transactional kindness changes when usefulness changes. Character assigns value before calculating benefit. This is very important in leadership. When someone under authority makes a mistake, power has a choice. It can teach, correct, restore responsibility, and protect standards. Or it can humiliate, threaten, and use fear to preserve superiority. Correction and humiliation are not the same. Correction seeks improvement. Humiliation seeks domination. And do not be distracted by public performance. A person may speak about patience to an audience and bring intimidation into the home. They may appear generous in public and become controlling in private. They may preach service while expecting family members to absorb every frustration. My friends, if the public identity requires the private household to suffer, that identity is not leadership, it is theater. Watch also how a person responds to boundaries. A trustworthy person can hear a clear no without treating it as an insult. An entitled person believes charm, status, pressure, or persistence should eventually purchase access. They do not respect your decision. They study how to overcome it. What did I say? Respect that disappears at a boundary was never respect. It was cooperation awaiting control. Authority does not manufacture character. Authority magnifies it. Give a generous person greater influence, and generosity can reach farther. Give an entitled person greater influence, and entitlement gains more victims. Power enlarges the consequences of whatever was already governing the heart. That is why leadership selection is never merely about competence. Skill determines what a person can accomplish. Character determines what their accomplishments will cost everyone else. You do not need to create secret traps or provoke somebody into failure. Do not become an investigator staging little dramas. Life supplies enough evidence. Restaurants become evidence. Meetings become evidence. Delays become evidence. Family conversations become evidence. Simply observe with patience. And now turn the test around. How do you treat people who cannot advance your career? How do you speak to those who cannot flatter your ego? What do you do when the other person lacks the power to punish your disrespect? That is the test of service against entitlement. Power reveals what a person does when resistance is weak. But pressure reveals what happens when resistance becomes strong, when desire is blocked, comfort disappears, and the person does not get what they want. The fourth test is pressure, and the fifth is delay. Pressure is the removal of convenience. Delay is the distance between desire and fulfillment. Together they reveal what comfort often keeps hidden. Now understand this carefully. Pressure does not excuse destructive conduct, and one stress response does not define an entire person. Everyone can have a difficult moment, but pressure makes established tendencies easier to see. It shakes the container, and whatever has been settling inside begins to rise. Watch a person when they hear no. Watch when the plan changes without their permission. Watch when someone else receives the recognition they expected. Watch when another person's needs inconvenience their schedule. These moments expose what polished conditions conceal. A mature person can say, "I am disappointed," and still preserve your dignity. They can feel frustration without making frustration your punishment. Entitlement behaves differently. Entitlement uses anger, guilt, threatening language, prolonged silence, or withdrawal of affection to force circumstances back into submission. Write this down. Disappointment is an emotion. Domination is a decision. What did I say? Feeling upset does not authorize you to become destructive. Delay provides another examination. In a healthy relationship, trustworthy people allow time for evidence, counsel, process, and mutual consent. They do not fear careful questions because truth does not need panic to survive. But manipulation manufactures urgency. Decide tonight. Do not consult anyone. If you trusted me, you would move now. Why the pressure? Because examination requires time, and time may reveal what intensity is trying to hide. My friends, an opportunity that cannot survive one honest question may not deserve your future. Then comes conflict. Conflict tests the purpose of communication. Does the person seek resolution or victory? Do they want understanding or domination? Are they trying to discover truth or simply protect their image? Some people enter a disagreement to solve a problem. Others enter it to defeat a person. Character does not ask, "How do I win?" Character asks, "What outcome preserves truth, responsibility, and respect?" Failure is another mirror. When the plan collapses, does the person examine their decisions, learn, apologize, and repair? Or do they rewrite history and search for someone weaker to blame? Responsibility says, "This part belongs to me." Immaturity says, "Nothing is ever my fault." And do not test only failure. Success is also pressure. Give someone more access, more money, more praise, and fewer restraints. Then watch. Success may enlarge generosity and responsibility, or it may expose superiority that limitation kept under control. Failure reveals how a person handles loss. Success reveals what they wanted power for. At the center of all these tests is self-mastery. The person who must answer every assault, defeat every objection, and escape every delay remains governable by external provocation. Push the right button, and you control the response. Real authority begins inside. Before speaking in a heated moment, ask 3 questions. Is the claim true? Is a response necessary? Is this the right time and manner? Truth without timing can become injury. A necessary answer delivered without restraint can destroy the very understanding it was meant to produce. Composure is not passivity. It is not weakness, fear, or the refusal to confront wrong. Composure is the ability to keep your values in authority while circumstances are campaigning to replace them. So observe character when desire is blocked, when recognition goes elsewhere, when failure arrives, when success expands access, and when waiting becomes uncomfortable. Rehearsed presentation becomes harder to maintain when the stakes rise. These tests produce evidence, but evidence can still be mishandled. If fear takes control, observation becomes accusation, caution becomes cynicism, and discernment becomes suspicion. Therefore, before using what you have seen to reach a verdict, you must learn the difference between wisdom that waits for truth and fear that assumes the worst. Now we must protect this teaching from becoming another form of fear. The tests of character are tools for wisdom, not weapons for suspicion. Suspicion reaches a negative conclusion before sufficient evidence. Discernment examines evidence before granting trust or imposing judgment. Suspicion begins with a verdict and searches for proof. Discernment begins with a question and remains teachable while truth becomes clear. Write this down. Discernment observes, suspicion accuses. There are 2 dangerous extremes. One person ignores every warning sign because hope feels kinder than truth. Another invents warning signs because distrust feels safer than vulnerability. The first refuses evidence. The second manufactures it. Neither is wisdom. Previous betrayal can make an innocent delay resemble rejection. A neutral question may sound like an attack because someone from your past used questions to control you. An ordinary disagreement may feel like the beginning of abandonment. The present person has entered the room, but the past person is still interpreting the conversation. And admiration can distort perception in the opposite direction. When you already admire someone, you may excuse conduct you would question in anyone else. You minimize contradictions, enlarge pleasant moments, and defend the image before examining the facts. Now watch. Both fear and admiration can edit evidence. So ask 3 separating questions. First, what objectively occurred? Not what did I feel, not what did I assume, what actually happened. Secondly, what meaning did I assign to it? Thirdly, what repeated evidence supports that meaning? Those questions separate fact from interpretation and interpretation from established pattern. The human mind tends to collect what confirms its existing conclusion. If you distrust someone, every silence becomes evidence against them. If you admire someone, every explanation sounds reasonable. You notice the details that support your belief and quietly dismiss the ones that challenge it. This is why wise counsel matters. Speak with mature people who are not emotionally dependent on the outcome you want. Do not consult only those who will agree with you. Find people who love you enough to challenge your assumptions and value truth more than your excitement. Discernment is not permission to expose, shame, diagnose, or dominate another human being. Its purpose is stewardship. It helps you decide what responsibility to share, what trust to extend, what access to grant, and how to preserve peace without denying reality. Humility keeps this process balanced. You can recognize destructive conduct and still remember that your understanding is limited. You can establish a boundary and remain open to new evidence. You can acknowledge danger without hatred and acknowledge improvement without pretending the past never happened. And please, do not create traps. You do not need secret tests, endless online investigations, or constant monitoring. That is not peace. Normal life will supply correction, responsibility, inconvenience, boundaries, and time. Patient attention will see enough. My question is, are you seeking truth so you can make a wise decision, or are you seeking faults so you can feel superior? What did I say? Motive matters even in discernment. Write this final distinction down. Awareness waits for evidence. Fear rushes to a verdict. You do not have to ignore your feelings, and you must not worship them. Let them alert you. Then examine facts, observe patterns, seek counsel, and remain humble. That is how you become discerning without becoming cynical. But when the evidence becomes clear, observation is no longer enough. Wisdom must decide what the evidence can responsibly support, how much trust, how much responsibility, and how much access. That decision is called a boundary. A boundary is not a wall built from hatred. A boundary is an ordered statement of responsibility. It says, this belongs to me, that belongs to you, and this is the level of access our relationship can safely carry. Write this down. Boundaries match access to evidence. Many people confuse forgiveness, compassion, reconciliation, and restored trust. They are related, but they are not identical. You may forgive someone without immediately returning them to the same position. You may show compassion without financing irresponsibility. You may desire reconciliation while acknowledging that cooperation still requires change. Trust transfers vulnerability. Trust gives another person access to your time, resources, information, peace, or future. Therefore, trust must not be governed by guilt. It must be supported by evidence. Now watch this progression. Courtesy may be offered freely because dignity belongs to every human being. Conversation requires basic safety. Collaboration requires demonstrated reliability. Intimate access requires tested character. Leadership access requires even more, because one person's conduct will affect many lives. What did I say? The greater the access, the stronger the evidence must be. A healthy boundary is clear, brief, respectful, and consistent. It does not require a 20-minute speech. I am not able to commit to that. We will not proceed without a written agreement. I need more time before making this decision. That behavior is not acceptable in this relationship. Those statements communicate, but anxious over-explanation begins to justify. You explain because you want the other person to approve your right to decide. Soon your boundary becomes a debate, and your peace is placed before a committee. Communication provides necessary clarity. Justification keeps asking permission. And notice this: a person's response to a reasonable boundary becomes additional evidence. A mature person may feel disappointed and still respect your decision. An entitled person punishes you, pressures you, questions your loyalty, or searches for a weakness in your explanation. Respect that survives a no may be trusted. Affection that disappears at a no was probably purchasing access. My friends, you are not assigned to manufacture another person's maturity. You can offer truth, support, encouragement, and example. You can walk beside someone who accepts responsibility, but you cannot choose growth on their behalf. There is a difference between helping and carrying. Helping strengthens responsibility. Carrying replaces it. And when you continually remove every consequence, you may interrupt the very feedback that could teach wisdom. Rescue can feel loving while quietly preserving the pattern that created the crisis. Apply this everywhere. In leadership, do not grant authority faster than character has been observed. In business, do not let excitement replace agreements, accountability, and proven follow-through. In dating, do not confuse emotional intensity with relational safety. In friendship, let loyalty deepen through reciprocal conduct. In family, love people without accepting every burden they refuse to carry. Increase access slowly. Reduce it proportionately when repeated patterns create risk. Do not punish. Do not perform. Do not announce every adjustment dramatically. Simply align access with evidence. Boundaries are not revenge. Revenge seeks to make another person suffer. Boundaries seek to keep responsibility in its proper place. They protect purpose, peace, resources, and even the possibility of loving without resentment. Now we have the pieces: inner security, consistency, correction, unequal power, pressure, delay, evidence, counsel, and boundaries. The final task is to bring them together into one repeatable protocol, one process that can govern your future decisions before emotion takes control. Let us close by turning the entire message into a decision process you can carry into every relationship, partnership, and leadership choice. Remember the central distinction. Charisma creates attraction, but character determines whether attraction can safely become trust. First, slow the pace. Resist premature commitments, manufactured deadlines, excessive disclosure, and instant certainty. You do not owe immediate access to someone merely because they created immediate excitement. Urgency is often where evidence disappears. Second, stabilize your heart. Name what you are feeling. Is it loneliness, fear, admiration, insecurity? Are you hoping this person will rescue you, validate you, or remove uncertainty? An unnamed appetite can become an invisible decision maker. Third, verify patterns. Compare words with conduct. Observe the person across time, settings, audiences, and changing incentives. Do promises become action? Do apologies become repair? Does public kindness remain present in private? Fourth, observe the revealing environments: correction, unequal power, pressure, and delay. How do they respond when challenged? How do they treat people who cannot reward them? What appears when desire is blocked? Can they wait without creating fear? Fifth, invite wise counsel. Seek mature people who value truth more than the outcome you want. Do not build a council composed only of voices that echo your emotions. Sixth, match access to evidence. Courtesy may be free, but trust is earned. Establish boundaries. Increase responsibility when consistent conduct supports it. When trust has been damaged, let restoration follow sustained change, not an intense speech. Seventh, remain revisable. Do not condemn a person forever, but do not pretend hope has erased present evidence. Leave room for genuine transformation while making today's decision from today's truth. Now, turn every test toward yourself. Are your private and public lives aligned? Can you receive correction without retaliation? How do you use power? What comes out of you when you are frustrated, overlooked, or forced to wait? It is easy to demand character from others. Leadership begins when you become worthy of the trust you are evaluating. Write this commitment down. I will not confuse intensity with consistency, explanation with transformation, or attraction with trust. Say it again. I will not confuse intensity with consistency, explanation with transformation, or attraction with trust. My friends, the goal is not to fear people. The goal is to become wise enough to protect purpose, peaceful enough to wait for truth, and disciplined enough to embody the character you require from others. Charisma may gain attention. Only character should gain trust.